You're listening to PetLifeRadio.com.
It's 11 o'clock at night. It's dark. You're sitting in front of the mirror getting ready for bed. There's nobody else in the house. You see something move in the corner of your eye. You glance to your right, but you don't see anything. Another minute goes by, and you think you see movement again. So you slowly turn to your left, but again, the room is empty. You turn back around, and staring you face to face in the mirror is a cat. You jump back because you don't have a cat, and there's no cat in the room. But there he is, staring at you in the mirror. Welcome to Paranormal Pets, where you can always expect the unexpected. Each week, we'll discuss all aspects of weird or spiritual animal encounters, ghosts, totems, psychic animals, animal souls, animal angels, and animals in religion, with a little cryptozoology thrown in. Now, step into the supernatural world of pets with your Paranormal Pets ghostly host,
Brandy Stark.
Hello and welcome to Paranormal Pets. I'm your host, Brandy Stark, and on today's show, we have Vince Wilson, who is going to talk about the devil bat. And he's going to explain a little bit about its origin, its history, what it is, where it is, and how he is currently working to track it. So we'll start with that right after these messages.
Now, time for something really scary. A word from our sponsors. Paranormal Pets will reappear before you can say Bigfoot. Don't run away.
Petco, where the pets go. Petco, where the pets go.
Pet Life Radio has tail-wagging, fur-flying, fabulous deals for our listeners from Petco. Get $6 off your order of $60 or more and up to 40% off the entire Petco site. That's right.
But that's not all.
Because you're a Pet Life Radio listener, you'll also get free shipping on your order of $49 or more. $6 off, up to 40% off, and free shipping from Pet Life Radio and Petco. To get these awesome deals, go to petcodeals.com. That's petcodeals.com.
Petco, where the pets go. Dyson.
The new Dyson Animal Vacs are powerful bagless upright vacuums for homes with pets. Air muscle and radio root cyclone technology generates the strongest suction power to powerfully remove dust, dirt, and pet hair from the home or car. To order your Dyson Animal Vac, go to PetLifeRadio.com/Dyson. PetLifeRadio.com/Dyson to order your Dyson Animal Vac today.
Dyson, music to your ears.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Did you hear that? Our commercials have mysteriously disappeared. Paranormal Pets is back with our haunted host, our ghost host,
Brandy Stark.
And welcome back to Paranormal Pets. On with me today is Vince Wilson, and I'd like him to tell you a little bit about himself, primarily because he's got a rather unusual background. So, what would you like to tell us?
Well, I've been doing paranormal research and investigation for 13 years now. Actually, it'll be 14 years this year. I started in 1999. And let me tell you, I didn't have one of those cliched sort of ghost hunter backgrounds in which I had experiences when I was a kid and that sort of thing. I just had a friend who was going to haunted bridges and battlefields, that sort of thing. I just jumped along and, started thinking a little bit more seriously than she did. And eventually I, got into the more for the ghost, instead of the ghost hunting, amateur ghost hunting aspect of it, started to go toward more the paranormal research and investigation part. And eventually, as of 2 years ago, I eventually got a certification in parapsychology from the American Institute of Parapsychology, which is run by someone Dr. Andrew Nichols. Mm-hmm. And And I've been, so essentially what that means is I submit myself for peer review and from colleagues, that sort of thing. I mostly investigate ghosts and hauntings and psychic phenomenon, but I also investigate other anomalous aspects as they come to our attention. And I currently run the Haunted Cottage Paranormal Research and Training Facility in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, which is about 70 minutes from either Baltimore, Washington, D.C., or Gettysburg.
Oh, wow. Well, Gettysburg, You're right there with the haunted battlefield, aren't you?
That's right. Yep.
Oh, excellent.
There's a lot of reports of hauntings and history around here. We train people here. The location itself is also haunted. It has over 12 people have died here over the past 180 plus years.
Wow.
Yes, we do research and investigations here as well. In fact, we have a team, local ghost research team, coming in a few weeks to do a haunted overnight here and try to see if they can stir up the spirits of the Haunted Cottage facility. The 200-year-old farmhouse is what it is.
Wow. Well, that's pretty much older than most everything in Florida. So I think the best we've got is
right.
the 1880s locally. So, well, now we're talking about your cryptozoological side here. So you have a special investigation going, or at least a research angle in which you're studying, I want to make sure I say it correctly, the devil bat.
That's right.
So
I kind of started calling it the Jefferson County Phantom, but Dr. Nichols recommended said, you should call it the devil bat because it looks like the way you described it looks like a bat. So I said, okay. I went along with that. Yeah, it works. I guess it's just sort of an accurate description, although we don't know if it has devilish intentions or not. But it certainly looks not. For the pictures I've seen of it, it does not exactly look very friendly, if you get my drift. It's been compared to the Mothman, and to some degree, but referencing the Mothman case, of course, it's debatable if this is a true cryptozoological phenomenon, although it can definitely fall within that criteria if it's a biological creature, but we have not found any evidence to support that hypothesis yet. So we could be looking at something that's supernatural, in a sense of an ethereal creature or apparition of some type, perhaps of a dark nature, or we could be looking at something of a cryptozoological possibility, or yes, I had to acknowledge the possibility it could even be a hoax. I'll tell you what happened, how this happened was, several weeks ago, almost a month ago as a matter of fact, an individual came to the Haunted Cottage with an iPhone and a SLR camera. He was hiking in the hills nearby. In fact, he was actually hiking in a restricted area. He said he used to go to this area all the time when he was a kid. In fact, in the 1970s, it used to be a Jellystone Park, one of those Hanna-Barbera cartoon theme parks. And it was unique about this location. It had caves that you could explore. You could actually go down to the caves and walk inside and that sort of thing. Well, he came and said that he was walking out there with his wife and 2 daughters, okay? And they're just kind of looking around, trying to find the caves, and they found some of the abandoned buildings from the Jellystone days, and they were walking around this area. And that's when it started getting dark, and they decided to head back. And as they were heading back, they heard noises in the treetops above them. They started to walk a little faster, of course. They felt the distinct feeling that they were being watched and followed. So before they realized exactly what was going on, they started taking a few pictures up in the trees, and that's when they saw 2 glowing lights aimed at them. They described them as red beams of light, not like a flashlight, but just kind of something that was glowing very faintly. And they looked up and they saw these 2 eyes, is what he was trying to get at, of course, and they started moving toward them, and that's when they started to panic and run. They actually tripping a couple of times, just kind of like in a horror movie sort of thing. Eventually making their way to their vehicle and departing the area as fast as they could. Now, he showed me pictures that he took, and unfortunately, this is why I need our listeners' help. Okay, this is why I brought to the public attention. And normally I would investigate this a little bit more myself before I did go out to this area and do some investigating. I haven't uncovered anything yet. But the problem is, this person has not come back with these pictures yet. He told me he would be back in a few days, and he didn't return, okay? And part of the reason was he works, I can tell you this much, he has a job in which he is concerned that if it got out in public, first of all, he was trespassing in an area he's not supposed to be in, and also taking pictures of monsters or whatever, that he could lose his job or become reprimanded or at least embarrassed a lot, That's something that we certainly deal with in the paranormal field, cryptozoological or the paranormal itself, is really the individual who fears their reputation. I mean, you see glowing eyes, and it is a very scary aspect, but of course you're still dealing with the subjective as well. So I hope he comes back. I hope he brings some of the photographs. The reason he said he wouldn't give it to me, the pictures, because he said that and he's correct about this, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, but the iPhone in particular he encrypts the photographs with information about the owner.
Okay.
The camera also has information that can be encrypted to that particular model. So he apparently he has knowledge of security and that sort of thing, and how these sorts of things work. And that's why he wouldn't let me download directly from the items, because he wanted to make sure they were decrypted of any information we carried back to him.
Oh, and that makes sense.
So he said he would come back in a couple of days after he uploaded the pictures and changed the format so it could be traced, but I haven't seen him since, unfortunately. So if anyone who's listening, if you've heard of anyone seeing this thing, which is described as a large black mass with wings and more or less wings, or maybe perhaps a cloak of some type, and with glowing red eyes, then please contact me at the Haunted Cottage, because we're creating a database of information on this. We've compiled a file, all right? So if any information you have, or if you'd like to volunteer to help us look into this more, you can contact me at the Haunted Cottage. Go to thehauntedcottage.com, or even better still, you know what? You better still go to harpersferryparanormal.com, which has information on it about our investigations so far. There's actually 2 articles up on there right now on the Jefferson County Devil Bat, as it's called right now.
So how often has this been cited? Has it been seen, you said at least once, but have there been other sightings?
At least once in current, sightings, but I have heard from local residents I've interviewed that, they've heard stories when they're a kid of decades past, there being sightings of a creature nearby. So I don't know if that's related in any way. Something interesting that we noticed when we were exploring the area was there was a construction going on in that area. So, of course, the logical assumption at that point is that the construction had disturbed something in the area. That's what's causing it to actually become aggressive.
Okay. Now, that would be an interesting thing. And that's something, again, you find in common with ghosts themselves. They say that refurbishing a house, will actually disturb the entity. So, and actually it makes some sense. If it's a natural phenomena, that would also be something that would certainly bring it out. Wow. Okay. So you said it was somewhat similar to the Mothman. Now, Mothman has almost always had a rather dark connotation that whenever the Mothman shows up, there's almost always a disaster
takes place. Yeah, exactly.
Wasn't there a bridge collapse and a couple of other major events in the area?
In 1967, I believe it was 67 or 69, in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, they had seen a creature described as a giant bat-like creature or moth-like creature. I think the only reason they didn't call it Batman back then was because Batman is already a comic book character. It was a little too silly, but they ended up calling it the Mothman, and the sightings of that went on for a full year, along with other paranormal phenomena. Now, some of that other phenomena is debatable because it's certainly been embellished. Like we all know, the Roswell case has been embellished over the past 60 or so years. And so has this story also been embellished upon. But the bottom line is a creature was sighted in Point Pleasant for a year, and in December of that year, the last sightings occurred after a brief increase of them. And then the Silver Bridge collapsed, killing, I think it was 34 people or something along those lines. It was the bridge that connected Ohio to West Virginia, and it was. Now they did figure out what caused the bridge to collapse. The bridge was just old. It was built for Mountie Fords, and by late 1960s, they had 15-ton trucks going across it. So it was a.
Well, and it's interesting because actually there are other accounts of bridges collapsing, even locally. The Sarasota Bridge in 1980 also collapsed. I read of an account up in. I'm going to say it was actually New Jersey. I have to double check, but again, residents complained of hearing these noises, and it was very creepy, and it sounded like devils shrieking, and it turns out they lived near the bridge, and the bridge was giving out, and even though the government kept checking on it and saying it was okay, it finally collapsed. So it's kind of it's an interesting forewarning. I don't think there was one with the Sarasota Bridge, but at least these other two have those kind of reports. And if it's okay with you, what I'd like to do is kind of pick up on this thread. We'll take a brief moment for some commercial messages, and then when we get back, we'll delve a little deeper into this phenomena and perhaps see what else listeners can learn and perhaps contribute. So we'll be right back.
No problem.
Right after these messages.
Now, time for something really scary. A word from our sponsors. Paranormal pets will reappear before you can say Bigfoot. Don't run away.
Every pet is unique. Maybe they're gray in the muzzle, yet young at heart. Maybe they're growing out of the puppy stage and into their paws and ears. Or maybe they're just trying to maintain a more girlish figure. At PetSmart, we have the right food for your pet at a great value for you. PetSmart. Be better together.
Go to PetSmartDeal.com and save up to 30% on awesome gifts for the pets and pet people in your life. Toys, collars, leashes, PetSmart gift cards, treats, and more. Go to PetSmartDeal.com today. PetSmartDeal.com.
I Love My Pets, the new single by Mark Winter, available on iTunes.
Hi, my name is Brent Atwater, and I'm the Animal Reincarnation Authority. Join me every week on Alive Again and let me look at your pet's energy to determine if they're going to reincarnate. I'll be able to tell you when they're going to come back and what they look like. So send me your pet's photo and email me your question at brent@petliferadio.com. I'm looking forward to answering your questions on Alive Again.
Every week only on PetLifeRadio.com.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Did you hear that? Our commercials have mysteriously disappeared. Paranormal Pets is back with our haunted host, our ghost host,
Brandy Stark.
All right, and we are back. We are currently talking about the devil bat, which is perhaps a cousin, which would be kind of interesting to the Mothman. It's not known, but has similarities. We're still speaking with Vince Wilson, who is doing research and compiling stories about this creature. And it's interesting now, the only thing that's been described is that it's a large mass with potential wings and red eyes. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
It sounds a little bit like a shadow figure. You don't think it's a shadow person, which is just about as enigmatic in paranormal circles, still being very heavily studied.
Yeah, shadow people is a controversial and debatable phenomenon. Some parapsychologists are critical of it, for example, think that the shadow person phenomenon is actually just ghosts in the dark. You know, and it's actually kind of overrated. But you never truly hear people being attacked by these things, or they tend to appear menacing. It could be the fact that they're, our imaginations get carried away because they're dark figures with no detail. That is terrifying to see if you can imagine being in a situation. I myself encountered a situation like that in 2006. It was definitely scary. Although we weren't attacked by anything, it was definitely a terrifying thing to see.
The shadow figures, I guess the comparison I see is that not only the darkness and the eyes as being kind of the common features, but almost the ominous nature or the sense of the predator, that it is going to attack, even though it doesn't, but the extreme sense of menace that these put out.
I think the difference in this case, of course, is what probably makes it unlikely that it's a shadow person, is that, that by the definition of shadow person, shadow people tend to be humanoid. Legs, arms, head, and that sort of thing. Varying degrees of size and shape and appendages, but, they're definitely humanistic. This thing was, either flying or floating or jumping through the treetops. They really couldn't get a good grip on that. And it was, it was definitely much larger than the case could be made. And I did see the photographs. Unfortunately, they're a little 3x5-inch screen. It's like the tiny little screen that iPods and iPhones and cameras have. And although this camera was very nice and didn't have a big screen on the back, a bigger screen than usual on the back, maybe 4 inches across, it was still tiny. And all I could make out was the eyes, unfortunately. And but you described it as a mask going at least 10 feet across or so, which could be wings or a cloak of some type, maybe the argument making for some kind of material, but it was definitely not a shadow person in the sense that we're used to in case of shadow people. It wasn't a people.
If it's on the other end of the extreme, what would you think if it was something that was actually biological? I mean, it almost has that enigmatic feel as well as, and I hate to bring this up, and I'm not tying the two together necessarily, but something like the Bigfoot, where, people see it, they can report it, but it just is never found, but it does appear to have a biological background. I mean, do you think this could actually be some sort of animal that is perhaps not in its native environment?
Certainly. Of course, the first thing we did is, assuming that it was a biological creature, some sort of cryptid, all right, we did some research into bats, of course, the largest bats that exist today that are known, and the largest bats that have ever existed going back in a prehistoric time. Now, the problem is that bats are a fairly new animal on the Earth compared to, they don't go back as far as the dinosaurs, for example. All right, the closest thing to bats back then were not mammalian. Bats are mammals, of course, and although they had pterodactyls and things like that back then, they were not actually like a bat. So, of course, that's our first, of course, that was a stretch of imagination because there's no evidence, of course, to even support if they were called the devil bat, there's actually no support that it's even bat-related. So that was definitely a note that was taken and looked into. The problem is with large-sized birds is, of course, the reduced amount of oxygen there is in the world today as compared to prehistoric times when the atmosphere of the Earth had more oxygen, which allowed for larger breathing animals like dinosaurs and that sort of thing. That's why I don't see like 40-foot snakes anymore, or 50-foot crocodiles or pterodactyls that are with wingspans going 30 feet across. Because our atmosphere doesn't allow for that sort of enlargement of creatures anymore. A few exceptions like whales and elephants, of course, and stuff like that. So biological is kind of would be a very fascinating thing to see something that large in today's present time, especially if it's an actual mammal. Of course, if you could argue there's maybe some sort of there have been cryptid sightings, of course, of modern day pterodactyls and that sort of thing. But once again, the problem with like any cryptid, of course, is there would have to be a breeding population. So in that case, you could argue that perhaps under the caves of Jefferson County, and Jefferson County is all caves, especially going from Harpers Ferry to Charlestown, all right? In fact, under the town of Charlestown, there's actually an underground lake. So could there be a previously undiscovered species of flying creature down there living nocturnally in these underground caverns and caves? That'd be something to look at. And they do discover new species all the time, of course.
Yeah, it's really fascinating when they do. And some of these creatures are, really they're beyond imagination. They're things that you would never imagine actually existed, and there they are. Now, one of the biggest issues that I've always had, and I think others have had too with cryptozoology or trying to find this, is it's almost always the recording. It's kind of, the recording is always kind of fuzzy, or it's almost like people are taken unawares. If folks are interested, and I would have them probably contact you and make sure they know the area and that they're not going into anything restricted and need to keep it nice and legal. But if they're interested, if they end up in the area and they're looking for this creature, or they simply happen to be in the area and the creature is there, how do you recommend people prepare themselves, and how should they react? I mean, how can they record this image and get it to you?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I would not recommend them going out on their own looking for this, because once again, this is a restricted area. That's why I've not put any directions to it. And of course, if you go to Google and put in Jefferson County Jellystone Park, it's not going to show up. All right, this place is so far forgotten that there's no records of it anymore online. There never has been any online, of course. There's records somewhere, I'm sure somewhere, but it's definitely not online anymore. So the only reason we know of it is because of other explorers telling us about it. So not too worried about people trespassing out there. But if you do find out about it, if you're a good researcher and you come here and you ask around and you find out where it is, don't go there without us. And I'm only saying that is because I have a good reputation around this area, and we can help you out. If you get caught up there, you probably won't spend the night in jail, hopefully, but they won't kick you off of that property. It's a private property. It's privately owned. No one's supposed to be there. They have signs everywhere saying, go back. Dangerous.
Okay. This is definitely something that people cannot research on their own then. But even if what if they encounter something else? Just in general, if you're a cryptozoologist, how would you recommend that people respond if they see something unnatural like that, or what they perceive as unnatural?
Of course, it totally depends on the situation. If you feel like you're in danger, then certainly fight or flight, I guess. It depends. The natural tendency, of course, would be to run. But I recommend, backing up. Always with your eyes on it, or at least some part of your team. That's very important. Never go anywhere by yourself. Always have several people with you, because you have strength in numbers. Even a large animal would be hesitant to attack a group of human beings. All right, because there's an instinct there that says, well, maybe if everyone was by themselves, I could have a nice meal tonight. But there's 5 of these things, and they'll probably attack, or probably gang up on me. So there's a lot less likely a chance of you being attacked or threatened in a group. 3 or 4 people or more is good. But never ever by yourself.
And in any case, even if you were by yourself and you saw something and you were not in danger, there's always the aspect of multiple witnesses. I mean, unfortunately, in today's world, things are very easily misconstrued. So, it would even give additional research evidence if this was something that was in multiples rather than singular. But in general, it sounds like don't look for it, but perhaps even research or legends would be kind of an interesting tie-in. But if they ever happen to randomly encounter, definitely not intruding on the territory then.
And of course, it's not saying that the immediate area the first sighting was taken at does not exclude the possibility, of course. And this is a small area. It's only about, 2 acres in size. So there's definitely a possibility that whatever this is, it's not a haunting, which tend to be territorial. The hauntings tend to be restricted within, for the most part, with exceptions, but for the most part, hauntings tend to be restricted within a certain perimeter. Like even a room can be haunted, or even a few feet of space in a house can be haunted without any other place in the entire building being haunted. There is evidence to support this theory, okay? Although, like I said, once again, there are exceptions. So unless it's a haunting, of a true supernatural sense, a paranormal phenomenon, then there's a possibility if it's a biological or supernatural phenomenon that can go outside of a certain parameter, then there's definitely the possibility this could be investigated outside this restricted area. There's no reason to say that there can be other studies of this thing in around Jefferson County or even Harpers Ferry and Charlestown.
Okay, interesting. And I think that I would tend to agree with a little bit more than, okay, excellent. Thank you for clarifying that. I certainly do not want folks going into areas where they are not safe and they're not supposed to be. And of course, that is one of the complaints that I have heard from cryptozoologists when you end up with the TV shows that, kind of point these things out and they almost feel like the animals are being harassed, which I think is kind of an interesting point. It's not the goal of this show either. Now, if folks want to find out more, because we're coming to the end of our time, but if they're interested, they want to find out more, they want to learn a little bit more about what you do, even with the paranormal, can you tell us your information again, how they can get in contact with you?
Well, sure. You can reach me through the hauntedcottage.com or through harpersferryparanormal.com, all right, for most of the paranormal research aspects we do. I also do, I'm also a licensed hypnotist, and I do paranormal hypnotism as well, which involves hypnotizing people to go into a trance for astral projection, past life regression, timeline regression, and all sorts of other experiments we're doing in that regard. And we're pioneering a lot, as a matter of fact, in paranormal hypnotism here at the Haunted Cottage. Things that have been tried before. Yep. So, it's very interesting.
It does sound like actually a whole other show. One of these days I'd be curious to find out about past life regressions if they include animal manifestations, if people actually remember prior lives in altered states, which would actually fit with perhaps Hinduism and Buddhist ideals of rebirth and reincarnation. So it'd be kind of a fun topic to play with. I really appreciate your taking your time with us today, and it's actually one of the first times I've encountered kind of a new potential case with cryptozoology. Normally, you find folks that have kind of this longer heritage, this long-lasting, like Loch Ness or kind of the generic creatures. But to actually come across something that is right in the beginning, with sightings and with more sightings, it truly is unique. I definitely will have to email and see about perhaps another show with past life regressions dealing with animals. So it'd be kind of a fun one. And I think it's just fantastic. So keep me on your newsletter. I do want to also remember to remind the audience that they should support their local rescues. As you can hear in the background, I still have Pug Rescue going, but there are plenty of good pets out there that need good homes, and hopefully they'll find a way into yours. And on behalf of Paranormal Pets, we're going to wish you happy hauntings, and we will see you next episode.
Pet Life Radio presents Paranormal Pets, where you can always expect the unexpected. Each week we'll discuss all aspects of weird or spiritual animal encounters, ghosts, totems, psychic animals, animal souls, animal angels, and animals in religion, with a little cryptozoology thrown in. Step into the supernatural world of pets every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.